Welcome to On the Brink with Andi Simon. I'm Andi, and as you know, my job is to get you off the brink. And we know that change is the one thing your brain hates very much, and it doesn't like me to tell you we're going to change. So I bring you guests who are going to help you see, feel, and think in new ways. It's interesting because when I was talking to our guest today, Knight Scott, he was talking about how to live, feel, and look the best you want to be. This is going to be a wonderful conversation with somebody who you're going to want to know more about. He's got a book, he's got some wonderful perspective, some very intuitive approaches to help you really look at the next stage in your life, however old you are today. Thank you, Nate, for being with me today.
Andy, thank you. Looking forward to this conversation.
We've had such fun preparing for this, but let me read you his bio. You're not going to expect it. Nate Scott is a former enlisted soldier, combat veteran, and West Point graduate, and a former infantry officer and ranger. Corporately, Nate is a former wealth advisor and a former CFO of Mortgage and Real Estate Technology, a company twice listed as an Inc. 500 fastest growing company. There are all kinds of twists and turns in his story. As an entrepreneur, Nate is a former personal trainer, a franchise owner, a real estate investor, and author of this great book, Life is Rich: How to Create Lasting Wealth. And I will tell you, the number of people who don't have enough money to retire on, much less to live the rest of their lives on, is very disturbing. The number who have home equity loans on their homes and living off it, this is lots and lots to think about. Today, Nate is a father and husband. He's a CEO and executive coach. Company is called Life is Rich Global. He's a leader and sales training and coach. And this is a company that's focused on helping people look, feel, and live the life they desire. Now, with that in mind, thank you for joining us. Who is Nate Scott? What has your journey been? I can read those bios, but when people tell their story, remember we live the story in our mind. You have a great story. What's your story, Nate? Share it with our
Thank you,
audience.
Andy. I tell you what, I love it. I love it. First and foremost, I truly have enjoyed catching up with you in the beginning and really discussing, the direction of this particular message today. Everyone, my name is Nate Scott. I'm the author of Life is Rich: How to Create Lasting Wealth. And I grew up in a small town outside of Savannah, Georgia. And I grew up with the desire to play college basketball. And then when my basketball scholarship fell through, I turned down my academic scholarships and enlisted in the Army. I grew up in a faith-based community with my grandparents, and I started thinking about financial independence as a 10th grader in high school. And it was in that point in time that I was really being shaped because I saw my dad work really, really hard. He worked in something called swing shift. But in that, there were times in which when I would ask him for something, he would say, "We'll see." And that whole idea of a parent saying we'll see really means that we got to count the beans. We got to really see if there's enough before I give you this commitment. And one of the things I appreciate about my father is that he would say, "I'm not going to make that promise to you because I could get hit by a car and all you're going to remember is Daddy said." And Andy, that forever has impacted my life about the importance of your word and that whole thing that follows the word that you give. And so when I enlisted in the Army, as soon as I got to my unit, I immediately rolled in college courses, continued to play sports. And as a result of that, one of my professors, her husband was a West Pointer. She knew my company commander, and they approached me about the idea of going to West Point. I was in Germany, had never considered West Point, did not even really know about it, but I knew about my experiences with West Point officers during my time as a soldier, and it wasn't really positive. And so I didn't have a desire to go. I really had a disdain for West Point officers. It was also during that time in which my shaping was the result of Malcolm X. And so I was really in a state of growing where I didn't really believe that the people that were presenting the opportunity was going to do any more. But I said I'd play the game. And so they continued to bring forward paperwork for me to pursue that opportunity. And lo and behold, as things were progressing, I got a knock on the door from my first sergeant saying that we were going to be deployed to Operation Desert Shield. And so here I was at 18 years old, 19, and finding myself in a situation where I'm walking around my room with a video camera and talking into the camera and saying to my family how much I loved them and that I didn't know if I was going to make it back. And these are the items in which they could have in the event that I didn't make it back.
Oh my.
So I went and served in combat. And at 19, when I walked perimeter during Operation Desert Storm, I said, Lord, if you allow me to make it back, I'll never waste a day of my life. And that was a defining moment for me. It was in that moment that I realized the importance of preparation. It was in that moment that I realized the importance of guidance and instruction. And then in that moment, I realized that time was not promised. And so, Andy, I'll kind of seal it up with this one thing, and that is we all have the same 1,440 minutes per day. And when you subtract out the time for working, for sleeping, for commuting, and the time it takes you to do what you have to do each and every day of your life, most people are left with just 1 to 2 hours remaining to do what they want to do. But then the question is, do they have the money to do it? And it was in that moment that I was clear about my desire to never waste any time and very clear about working on those things that would allow other people to not have to go through the experience that I had gone through to be in a position so that they can look, feel, and live the way that they desire.
Nate, before you go on, I don't want to detour. Did you go to West Point? I saw that in your bio. I just heard what you said. I truly believe that there are moments in our lives where we make decisions. We may regret them or not, but somehow they're there to guide us and to think about where are we going? What are the steps? So, did you go to West Point? And how did you get there?
So when I got back from serving in combat, because even there they kept sending paperwork. And so they continued the process and I continued to play the game. Fortunately, I was that person coming out of high school. I did turn down academic scholarships. I was that student athlete. I was that leader. So I had the profile. And so when they put the paperwork in front of me, I completed everything. And when I got back from serving and got back to Germany, I accepted the offer to West Point's prep school, which was a 10-month program, still had no intentions of going to West Point. I looked at that as a way to get back stateside and then to start playing basketball at the junior college like level and to get myself back into the academic frame of mind. But Andy, it was on February 26, 1992 at 10:30 a.m. that I wrote out a Benjamin Franklin T, the pros and cons. And I made a decision to go to West Point because I said this would give me an opportunity to make the greatest impact. And I would be able to show them what soldiers were really like, i.e., that just because one was an enlisted soldier did not mean that they didn't have the capacity to become an officer or to go to college. It was just that I made a decision consciously that I wanted to pursue my goal. And I was not being driven by what everybody else would expect of me. So I went on to West Point. I graduated. I was the third regimental commander. There's a brigade of 4,000 cadets, 1,000 per regiment. I was one of the 6 people that wore 6 stripes.
Wow.
So I excelled. And the week I graduated from West Point, I graduated with degrees in engineering, computer science engineering, and sociology. And it was a phenomenal experience. And I'd like to say that my class, the class of 1996, I'm the third regimental commander from that class. We've got about 19 general officers to date. And at school, I was called the general.
I think that's a great story, and I'm glad you shared it because, on the one hand, first she talked to you about going to West Point. Somebody saw something in you. Then you went to Desert Storm and you had experiences. You sort of had to live life a little bit before you could appreciate who you were and what people saw in you and what you thought about yourself. Then you go to West Point and you excel. And oh my gosh, and you come out with 3 degrees and you're beginning to think of yourself in a whole new way. And then where'd you go from there?
Yeah. Well, and Andy, let me adjust a little bit because I was never unclear about who I am and whose I am. The thing for me in that point in time was the vow that I made as a person of faith, saying, Lord, if you allow me to make it back, I'll never waste a day of my life.
Uh-huh.
So it was never a situation where I was wondering or had any question about my capacity. It was just the fact that when people did recognize me as a result of what I was doing, and one of the things I always talk to people about, the being proactive, is that the room opened up because I stood out. And so the opportunity was presented because I was in motion. And so every door that was open, I just made a decision to walk through. And that was more about who I am versus about the institution. So I was never it was never validating for me. West
Yeah.
Point has never been a thing of validation. But the week that I graduated from West Point, because I was very intentional, I got introduced to the world of personal growth and development and entrepreneurship.
Uh-huh.
And that happened as a result of me being invited to a room full of happy people, is the way I like to describe it. It was a classmate of mine inviting me to a network marketing meeting. And in that venue, I was not drawn into the opportunity. But for me, it was life changing because I never knew about picking up books and going to seminars and being around successful people. So I tell people as I've spoken around the world, take over my West Point degree, engineering and sociology, take over my MBA from George Washington University, take over my financial planning background from Georgetown University. When I learned to pick up books and go to seminars and be around successful people, that's what laid the foundation for everything else I've done in my life. And in fact, I attribute that experience to teaching me how to read the Bible as a practical manual.
Uh-huh.
So, very life defining moment, once again, being introduced to a lifetime of learning because I was in a room with other professionals that were doctors and bankers and engineers who were on the weekend investing in themselves, trying to get somewhere else. And that was really eye opening to me because I thought that that was the apex, if you will. They were already in their careers, but what I learned was that they might have been in their careers, but they still were seeking something more. And
Yeah.
I'm so grateful to have been exposed to the world of personal growth and development and entrepreneurship via network marketing.
Now, before you wrote your book and you formed your company and became an executive coach, it sounds like you had a bunch of other experiences along the way. And as a CFO, as an entrepreneur, it's a journey. We know that. But it sounds like there was a core foundation that you had laid on what you were, what you really liked to do, the kind of mission you were on, the kind of collegiality with God that you promised that you would do your best. Can you talk to us a little bit about that journey? Because it doesn't sound like it was a straight line from A to B. It was lots of interesting opportunities arising. Am I correct there?
Yeah, it was opportunities and it was the uniqueness that I have in being able to see things strategically
Hmm.
and see dots connected. So, my first business was as a personal trainer. I then started teaching people how to apply the habits of physical fitness to their life. I then did my MBA at George Washington University, started teaching people how to apply the habits of physical fitness to business.
Ah.
I then did financial planning at Georgetown and started teaching people how to apply the habits of physical fitness to personal finance. And Andy, what it is that the process was the same.
Hmm.
People would have a goal. I would then do the assessment and then lay out a plan and then hold people accountable to the execution of the plan. Well, I did the exact same thing as a point guard in basketball. We start out the season with a goal, and then in turn, we look at what we're working with, and then we lay out the game plan for the season, and then it's all about execution. I
Yep.
did it as a quarterback in football. Same process. I did it as an infantry officer, ranger, taking soldiers and leading them through battle with the goal of coming back alive. So everything has been a consistent understanding of a process of transformation.
Hmm.
And so when it came down to what it is that the success that I had in proving this was that I knew in transitioning from the military that if I had a family, I wouldn't stay in. But up until that point, I was career by day. I was an infantry officer, ranger, planning to do all the tough, fun jobs. But I knew if I had a family, I wouldn't stay in. And so when I got into a relationship after my first duty station, I rerouted from the Ranger Battalion to the Old Guard at Arlington National Cemetery.
Uh-huh.
So I served in Arlington National Cemetery, and I chose that assignment because number one, it was an elite assignment, and number two, it would put me into a great environment, highly academic environment, so I could transition. And from there, when I did get ready to get out of the service in 2001, I had a 90-day window called terminal leave in between military time and getting out. I read a couple of books because I knew that my goal was to be financially free and I needed to get in position before I transitioned if I was going into real estate because I would have to have a history of income. I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad and Cash Flow Quadrant. I pulled a couple of concepts from those books. And then I took massive action. And in 90 days, I acquired over $1 million in assets in that 90-day time frame, which in turn laid the foundation for my first million at 32. So I transitioned from the military. I executed that plan, and inevitably, it led me to about 3 years later when I had my first child, Nadia, which is when I said I would commit to sowing into the lives of women, such that if anything happened to me unexpectedly, she'd have role models that I want her to follow. I looked at my numbers, saw that I was in a position to walk away from a phenomenal job as a senior systems analyst for the Missile Defense Agency, and I did so and moved to Jacksonville, Florida, sight unseen to get near the water. I'm an introvert naturally, and to get near Savannah, which is home. So I've been in Jacksonville, Florida since 2004. And my reason for coming and making that move was I was exiting in the manner in which I wanted to because I had achieved what I desired, which was to be able to be that dad that was around.
I love your story. I am anxious, though, now to begin to share how you work with people around this cash flow challenge that they aren't paying attention to. Because what you've done is you've migrated yourself through intentionality, through purpose, with a growing awareness that you have a job to do to help others, not just for yourself. And, some people make money just for them, and clearly that's wonderful. But others do in collaboration and find ways to begin to help educate. You're a teacher, and you're also very much into plan. I love structure. I love strategy because I like to know where I'm going. How do you begin to migrate from where you are into beginning to develop a unique way of helping people? And this cash flow challenge, I know we don't want to make the whole topic today, but it's a big issue. Please.
It's the issue that keeps me up at night, Andy. I'm really, really concerned because number one, when I said I commit to sowing into the lives of women, such that if anything happened to me unexpectedly, my daughter would have role models that I'd want her to follow. This is important because I know that women oftentimes outlive men. In fact, the life expectancy of women is 81 and men is 76. The other thing that I know is that women oftentimes will be the one raising adult children as well as taking care of their parents. In addition to that, women oftentimes will go through a divorce later in life and then be in a situation where they're starting over. And if their income, which we have the wage gap, causes them to not have as much put away for retirement, well, then that in turn leads to a lot of compounding problems. And so when we have that single mom or that mom that's working and worrying about daycare and all those other factors, you're talking about some real tangible factors that address that cash flow danger.
Yeah.
And so recognizing that, I went into the financial services in a unique position because I went in there to see what they were being taught because I was getting cold called by people and they didn't know my background. They didn't know my background from West Point, Georgetown, and George Washington, and they didn't know I was actually looking for an advisor. Not because I didn't know what to do, but because I didn't want my emotions driving my decisions. And so within that time frame of working in the wealth field, I realized why 77 million baby boomers are retiring and facing a cash flow danger. Why 66 out of 100 people age 65 earn less than $30,000 of retirement. Why 47% of people said if they had a $400 emergency, they'd have to sell something or borrow money to address it. And why 68% of people are living paycheck to paycheck. So I wrote Life is Rich, How to Create Lasting Wealth to teach how to think versus what to think. How to think versus what to think. You
Mm.
know, Andy, when I lay out this message, it's rooted in me understanding that people may plan and do the things that they think that will put them in the right position, but life will happen.
Yeah.
You see, the reality is that there are situations that will unexpectedly hit us. That can be divorce, that can be the job loss, that can be a market crash. And how do I know that? Because I experienced those things. I experienced going from 5 million to zero after being the CFO of an Inc. 500 fast growing company 2 times back to back. And then 90 days later, shutting our doors. I saw
Wow.
people in my 40 unit apartment complex losing their jobs and then not paying rent. I saw myself being in a great position with my net worth, but then seeing that after year one, year two, and then year three of actually covering that asset, I found myself in a situation where it didn't make any more sense. And then I saw myself going through a divorce untimely in those constraints and the things that we face. So when I see those experiences that I've been through, I think about, well, how did I navigate that terrain? How did I, as an infantry officer ranger, apply those skills of resilience and persistence to navigate this foreign territory? And more importantly, can I see the route and can I then teach people how to do the same thing? Can I tell them to follow me as I did my soldiers and know that I can lead them to the other side? And Andy, I saw that I could. And that's why I wrote Life is Rich, How to Create Lasting Wealth. And so what I do is I have coaching, which is my high ticket. I do community, which brings people into a place where there's like-mindedness. But then the bottom is the book, which acts as the curriculum. And the book's primary message is that entrepreneurship must be the foundation of any wealth building plan because it's about cash flow versus net worth. And I understand that there's only two ways to increase cash flow: either increase your income or decrease your expenses. The other thing that I know is that finances are 80% behavior, 20% know how. 80% behavior, 20% know how. With that understanding, I know that the two biggest expenses that people pay are taxes and ignorance.
Yeah.
Andy, I help to reduce both. And
Uh-huh.
so that's how I go about addressing this issue that no one else that I've found is doing, because I approach it from one question. And that question is, how do you want to look? How do you want to feel? And how do you want to live the last 10 years of your life? How do you want to look? How do you want to feel? And how do you want to live the last 10 years of your life? And that one question, Andy, opens up dialogue that causes a person to really become present about their current circumstances. They can do their own assessment on the back of an envelope with pen and paper. And then I say, now go back and have this conversation with your trusted advisor and see if they're in a position to help you now that you know the real numbers. And if they're not, come back to me so I can give you a plan and support and a vehicle to get you to the destination safely.
I'm listening to you, and as an anthropologist, we know so much about how humans are futurists. If they can't visualize the future, they can't live today. You're not an anthropologist, but you did study sociology. And what you're really describing is how humans, as nutty as we are, um, really do need a vision of what they want to be doing the last 10 years of their life, whatever year that might be. Without that, every day looks like yesterday. And yesterday's habits are driving today's behavior. Therefore, today may look like yesterday, but the last 10 years of your life might not, and things do change. And without and I say a visualization instead of a vision, a visualization is a story you can tell me about what it is you want to be doing the last 10 years of your life. Tell me a story. We live the story in our mind. And what you're helping them do is begin to frame and reframe that story so that they can begin to actually plan to live it as opposed to hope it happens. Hope is not a good strategy. But I'm delighted to hear what you're saying because it's very human. I mean, humans are cultural creatures and their habits from yesterday will die tomorrow. The story in their mind will be happy to live through, but it won't be because you're not the same as you were yesterday. And I'm particularly disturbed by the number of those boomers who are going to be selling their businesses and have no plan of what happens next. They're so happy to be out of work and have no idea that now they are very vulnerable to all of the things that happen when you are out of what you've always done. So your thoughts about, as a sociologist, anthropologist, MBA who helps people, well, what are you discovering? Are people realizing that by visualizing what they want to do, they begin to take the right steps to get there? Do they follow the path?
Well, the hardest part of that, Andy, is getting a person to even put their mind in a place where they even can think about the future.
Yes.
Because the reality is that
Yes.
people are living out life and they've never even had an opportunity to breathe. And so I struggle when I ask someone, well, how much, well, when I ask, how do you want to look physically? And I have to repeat it several times to get them to make the switch to say what he's really saying, because I've never paused long enough to really see what that even is, to understand it. You're telling me to think about something, and I'm like this, I'm going, going, going. So that's the first instance right there. The other side of that is when I say, well, based on how you want to look, feel, and live, how much do you need to fund FUND that life? And they said, well, I don't really know. I said, well, at the
Set it
baseline, you
up.
know what you need right now.
Uh,
So, so it's really something where it begins with me trying to slow people down to get them engaged in that process. And then from there, we go into saying now with that number, let's say 5,000 a month as a common number that people will tell me. Another number is 10,000 a month. When I say, well, 5,000 a month, you need a portfolio of 1.5, 1.2 million, assuming a 5% rate of return. You in 10,000, you need 2.4 million. And then we do the math. And then when a person gets that, then that's when reality sets in. We realize, oh my goodness, I have no shot at getting there. And so from there, I'm able to then say, I can help you where nobody else can help you. But you got to understand that the seeds you plant today is for the harvest you want in the future. The seeds you plant today are for the harvest you want in the future. It is habits. And Andy, I will share from the book. I have a page 5 that says, daily habits done daily build character. I said, I'm your constant companion. I'm your greatest helper or heaviest burden. I will push you onward or drag you down to failure. I am completely at your command.
I'm sorry for laughing.
Half
We
of the
think we
things you
have free
do,
will, but we have none at all. The habits are driving us, and we are paying no attention to the fact that no thinking is going into the behavior. It's just a habit. Mm.
that's right. Half of the things you do, you might as well turn over to me, and I will do them quickly and correctly. I'm easily managed. You must be firm with me. Show me exactly how you want something done, and after a few lessons, I will do it automatically. I am the servant of great people and Allah's of all faiths as well. Those who are great, I have made great. Those who are failures, I have made failures. I'm not a machine, though. I work the precision of a machine plus the intelligence of a person. You may run me for profit or run me for ruin. It makes no difference to me. Take me,
I
train
love
me,
it.
be firm with me, and I will place the world at your feet. Be easy with me, and I will destroy you. Who am I? I am habit.
Don't you just, you are really brilliant, sir. That is just beautiful and absolutely true. I specialize with helping people and their companies change. And you start with habits. They really don't know what they do every day. They don't really know whether it delivers anything or not, but they get into the behavioral habits. The habits are happy. Your brain uses 25% of your body's energy, is perfectly happy doing just what you did yesterday, not thinking. Don't ask me to think about it. I go through my habits, I go through my habits, I got my job, I got my family. And then you get paid and you have, what did I do? Oh, I don't really know what I did, but I did, but I did. So we're going to change that. Oh, really? How do we start? And where do I go? And total. So unless you have a crisis, like the company that closed the doors, you are perfectly happy doing what you've always done. And that's the problem because yesterday is a bad dude for tomorrow. So I love it. Where do you take the book from there? It's just wonderful.
Yeah, and I tell you, I just get joy, Andy, when the light bulb goes off of people. Because
Yeah.
I know that if a person engages in a relationship with me and they recognize that that book is a real resource. It's not a read through book. I always tell people it's not a read through book because I cover leadership is the answer to cash flow danger. It happened to me. Become an entrepreneur, choosing the right entity, raising capital, asset protection, protecting your financial privacy, reducing your taxes, retirement planning, residual income retirement planning, estate planning, and life is rich. It's really a guide that gives one an introduction to my capacity to help them. And then from there, the invitation is for them to really engage because I say, if I tell you, you'll forget. If I teach you, you'll remember. But if I involve you, you'll learn. The Socratic method of teaching is what I'm working from. And I excel at teaching people how to think versus what to think. And I'm leveraging the fact that I am a former personal trainer, so I understand the importance of looking good and feeling good. And I'm also someone that understands that the output from the core, and my core is spiritual, mental, emotional, relational, but the outcome of that is physical and financial. And when you have all those things together, I'm just a complement to anyone that already has a book of business because I'm working at the individual level to help optimize an organization, whatever type of organization that is.
Now, you work with organizations, teams, as well as individuals, it sounds like. How do you do that?
Yeah, same thing. Because every organization is made up of team. Every organization is made up of
People.
of individuals. And so I
Yeah.
always tell people. I had someone the other day say to me, "Can I share this information with companies?" And I said, "Well, every company was started by an entrepreneur."
Yes.
And
So
so,
why
the
not?
first contact has to be with the individual. And so, if the individual buys into it, then the individual
Uh,
has an opportunity to share. In fact, a great real world testimony to that is July 8th, 2015. I was leaving LA Fitness. I passed a pink Cadillac. I didn't see the person driving the vehicle, but I saw it as a status symbol. So I pulled on the side of the road, flagged her down, gave her a copy of my book, and said, "Read this. If you get any value from it, you can pay for it later." You see, she was my avatar. She was an executive woman. I perceived she was successful. And so I stopped her as a stranger, and I had something of value, and I knew I'm a person of value. So I gave her something. She went left, I went right. She contacted me on July 26th, about 2 weeks after our meeting, and told me that she had read the book. But not only that, she had shared the book with 30 of her directors. She had taught from the book.
oh
From there,
my.
they all wanted the book. Then she asked me to do a conference call with 200 of her ladies. I said, bring the husbands on. After that, she asked me to do a live event. And then she paid $4,500 to work me for 90 days as her coach. And
Wow.
so that's an example of the value ladder. And then to tell you that great story, well, I shared this book with her on that particular date, but then less than a year meeting at the stop sign, I actually married her. And so this is the 3 year anniversary. And just
It was a pink Cadillac, huh? Anyone who's bold and brave enough to drive around in a pink car and deserves Nate Scott. Nate, we're just about ready to wrap us up. As much as I'm enjoying ourselves, a half hour, plus or minus a little bit, is good for our listeners. One or two things that you want them to remember, maybe even act on, besides buying your book, but please share with them.
yeah. First thing is, I want people to make note of alignment before assignment. Alignment before assignment. Number two, in that you are the asset. You are the asset. Next, how to think versus what to think. How to think versus what to think.
That's a great point.
And then last, life is rich. And so I shared that to kind of button everything up because the reality is that finances are 80% behavior, 20% know-how. And with that understanding, there's only two ways to increase cash flow, either increase your income or decrease your expenses. My desire is to help people to keep their money and execute a simple game plan with entrepreneurship as a foundation of that plan. And step one, to address money, because I know we don't want the financial worry, is to establish a business so that you can convert ordinary expenses into business deductions. Number two, health, because we want to be mobile, vibrant, look good, feel good. I suggest that you start an online wellness business and commit to consuming those products on a daily basis, just so you have a way to start to convert your ordinary expenses into business deductions. Number three, purpose. Engage in something purposeful, and ideally, your vision will fit within my vision. And so, consequently, it gives us the opportunity to work together collaboratively. And then, last, time freedom. Be intentional about something that gives you an opportunity to create income that's sustainable, predictable,
Wow. I'm
repeatable, and
thrilled.
growable.
Go ahead. Is
First
there more?
step for you is to so the first step would be to get Life is Rich, How to Create Lasting Wealth, which you can get from my website at www.lifeisrichglobal.com/book. Please skip Amazon. Buy direct because that's going to allow me to send you some audio as well as give you access to me for a complimentary session. But that's really key. Start there because that's going to give you the immediate resource. But other than that, follow me on IG at Ask Nate Scott, as well as on Facebook, and then lastly on LinkedIn. So,
I think this has been a fabulous podcast. I hope our listeners have enjoyed it as much as I have. I just like watching his face. It's just so much fun. And so if you're a viewer, please share this. I have a hunch that thousands and thousands of people who are facing a cash flow challenge want to know Nate and want to understand how they can live, look, and feel better as they look at the last decade of their lives, whatever year that might be in. And that's the point. You're always on a journey. You don't know what the end date is. And so consequently, you must prepare yourself for enjoying it. Every day, I believe, is a gift. And I learned that 20 years ago now when a horse rolled over on me and broke my back and gave me a concussion. When I woke up, I said, every day is a gift. I'm here. And that one never knows what might happen tomorrow. But this is really a very profound conversation, and I'm delighted to be able to share it. Let me wrap up. For all of you who come and visit us, I'm so thrilled to have you. And I'm really delighted today that we're talking about something so important to you. Reach out. You can reach out to me or to Nate directly, and we'll put you in touch with each other. My books are on Amazon and in Barnes& and Noble and your best local bookseller. You can always reach out to me, and I can send you a signed copy. On the Brink is the origin of our podcast came from our first book, On the Brink, about how little anthropology can help your business grow. Rethink, Smashing the Myths of Women in Business is still selling like crazy, and I think is going to be fascinating next journey for it. And Women Mean Business came out in 2023, and it is doing extremely well, helping women understand how to thrive and rise in business itself. There are 102 women in there who helped you with their ideas. All of us, I help companies change. Nate helps you also. What we love to do is help you see, feel, and think in new ways. And I think it's so much fun to be able to do it together. Your brain hates me. Don't worry about it. Just tell your brain, I like what we're doing, and it will like what we're doing. And if your brain says, oh, I hate what you're doing, it will hate what you're doing. Your brain is in your hands, and its habits are ready to be changed, so you can as well. Thanks, Nate. It's too much fun today. I don't want to get off. Everybody have a wonderful day. Remember, take your observations, turn them into innovations, and become that entrepreneur that Nate wants you to be. Am I right?
Yes.
Good. Bye-bye now.